Greetings, fellow horror fans. We're looking at the Hellraiser franchise, now continues on Hellraiser III, Hell on Earth. The revelation of his own form of humanity in Hellraiser II causes Pinhead, a demon called the Cenobite, to be split into entities. His former self, World War I British Army Captain Elliot Spencer, and a manifestation of Spencer's id, which takes on the form of Pinhead. While Spencer ends up in limbo, Pinhead is trapped, along with the puzzle box, among the writhing figures and distorted faces etched into the surface of an intricately carved pillar, the Pillar of Souls. J.P. Monroe, the womanizing owner of a pub and nightclub called the Boiler Room, buys the pillar. An ambitious young television reporter, Joanne Joey Summerskill, sees hook chains embedded in a teenage clubgoer in a hospital emergency room. They come to life and tear the clubgoer to pieces. A young homeless woman named Terry, who came with the clubgoer, explains that the chains sprang from the puzzle box, which she pried from the pillar. Terry gives the puzzle box to Joey. While visiting the box's background with the help of her cameraman Doc, Joey invites Terry to stay with her. Joey uncovers a videotape from one of Pinhead's former victims, Christy Cotton, that explains the puzzle box is the only means of returning Pinhead to hell. Pinhead remains dormant until Monroe has to have sex with the clubgoer, Sandy. Afterward, hook chains drag Sandy to the pillar and Pinhead absorbs her body. Pinhead points out that they have both used Sandy for their own purposes. Although initially horrified, Monroe agrees to bring Pinhead more club members so he can feed on them and be freed. In return, Pinhead promises Monroe power and unnatural delights. Joey has recurring nightmares about how she presumes her father died in Vietnam. During one such dream, Spencer contacts Joey. He explains how his experiences in World War I caused him to lose faith in humanity, and instead of the forbidden pleasures promised by the puzzle box. Spencer tells her that without his humanity to act as a balancing influence, Pinhead is completely evil and will indiscriminately wreak havoc on Earth for his own pleasure, a violation of the Cenobite's laws. To defeat him, Joey must reunite Spencer's spear with Pinhead and use the puzzle box to return him to hell. A misunderstanding leads Terry to believe that Joey has abandoned her, and she returns to the arms of her ex-boyfriend, Monroe. Monroe attempts to feed her to Pinhead, but she overpowers him. Before she could flee, Pinhead tugs her into feeding Monroe to him, promising to turn her into a demon in return. Now free, Pinhead massacres the club's patrons. Hearing news reports, Joey goes to the club to investigate. Pinhead orders Joey to give him the box, but she escapes him. Pinhead resurrects several of his victims as demonic Cenobites, including Terry, Monroe, the barman, the DJ, and Doc, who also love to investigate the club. Joey flees through the quiet streets, pursued by the new Cenobites. The Cenobites kill local police as Joey enters the church and begs the priest to help her. Lacking in faith that demons could exist, the priest is appalled by the appearance of Pinhead. Pinhead defiles the church and almost kills the priest until Joey regains his attention to the puzzle box she holds and gets him to chase her. The Cenobites trap Joey on the construction site and prepare to torture her. She solves the puzzle box, and they are sent to hell. The box transports Joey into limbo, where she comes face to face with an apparition who appears to be her dead father. The apparition tells Joey to give him the puzzle box, only to be revealed as Pinhead in disguise. Pinhead sneers her machinery and prepares to transform into a Cenobite. Spencer's limbo-bound spirit confronts Pinhead and forcibly fuses himself into Pinhead. Joey breaks free and uses the puzzle box, which is transformed into a dagger, to stab Pinhead through the heart, sending him back to hell. With Pinhead's humanity restored, the box returns Joey to Earth. She buries it in a pool of concrete at the construction site. Later, the finished product of the same site is revealed, a building whose interior design is identical to the box. Interesting. So let's look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. New World Pictures and Film Futures, a production company owned by Clive Barker and Chris Figg, held a meeting about a third Hellraiser film before Hellbound was released. Barker had originally intended for the Hellraiser sequels to focus on Claire Higgins' character Julia, but Higgins declined to reprise her role in the third film, and her character was killed off in later drafts of Hellbound. Other ideas included stories set in ancient Egypt, a follow-up to Hellbound in which Pinhead attempted to resurrect himself, and a building that functioned as a lament configuration. As was the latter two would make it into the final script. During these talks, 20th Century Fox demanded excessive cuts to Barker's latest film, Nightbreed, an adaptation of his novella Cabal. Following a misleading marketing campaign from Fox that had promoted it as a slasher film, Nightbreed underperformed the box office and caused film features to go out of business. With New World's own bankruptcy troubles, Hellraiser III went into development hell. Former New World executives, including Lawrence Cupin, established Transatlantic Pictures, and the rights were transferred to them. Following disagreements with Transatlantic, Barker had no official involvement in the project until much later, during post-production. He said the studio balked at its fee, as they wanted a cheap and nasty film. Tony Randell, who directed Hellbound, co-wrote the story with Peter Atkins. Atkins completed the first draft of the screenplay in 1991. Many major elements remain unchanged from the shooting script, but the Barbie and CD Cenobites do not exist. The end of the screenplay has Pinhead and Elliot merge into one being, but following this, Joy makes a deal with him to be his willing bride in return for a successful life. Subsequent rewrites introduce the CD and Barbie Cenobites, Bennett's deception as Joy's father, and happier ending. The setting was made unambiguously American, ending the first two films' tradition of mixing British and American elements. And now on to the pre-production. Randall was set to direct, but the producers removed him after they became worried that his vision for the film was too bleak. Anthony Hickox replaced Randall after a mutual friend, whom Hickox had cast in Waxwork 2 lots of times, suggested him. Barker, who disliked Hickox's prior work, believed him a poor fit for the Hellraiser series, as Hickox was known for horror comedy films. When Hickox met with him, Barker stressed that he expected Hickox to take the material seriously. Hickox, a fan of the series, agreed to use the first two films as a guide for the proper tone. Only two actors returned from the prior films: Doug Bradley as the Cenobite Pinhead, and in a cameo, Ashley Lawrence as Christie. Hickox said he found the casting process for Hellraiser film both exciting and frightening. The first to be cast was Terry Farrell, who was returning to a career in acting after a break. Hickox previously sought for Waxwork 2, but when that became impossible because of scheduling clash, he promised to cast her in his next project. And by the way, Terry Farrell, yeah, that's the same person who went on to play Jadzia Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, so there's that. Anyway, Kevin Bernhardt, who had appeared as a series regular in General Hospital, was cast as J.P. Monroe. The role of Monroe's girlfriend Terry went to Paula Marshall, who Hickox said was a critical casting choice. This film rested on the performances of Marshall, Farrell, and Bradley. Rejoice cameraman Ken Carpenter, an actor friend of studio executive Cupin, was cast, as he had the look they wanted, practical and hard-working. Atkins himself took the role of the barman and the subsequent Barbie Cenobite, and several other crew members, including Cupin and producer Lawrence Murdoch, took cameo roles. Smaller roles were filled with friends of friends, local actors, and people who had appeared in previous genre films, including Hickox's Waxwork series. Most of the crew were new to the series too. Hickox brought many crew members from his previous films, including cinematographer Gary Lively, who worked with Hickox on Waxwork 2. Bob King from special effects company Image Imagination was one of the few returning crew members from previous Hellraiser films. King had also previously worked on Nightbreed and the Waxwork films. Gary J. Tunnicliffe, who had become a writer and director in later Hellraiser films, joined the film's makeup crew and created the lament configuration boxes. Paul Jones replaced Geoff Porta as his makeup coordinator. And now on to the filming. Hellraiser III was the first film in the series shot in the United States. Lawrence's scene, a recorded interview in which Christie explains the series' mythology, was shot separately prior to the rest of the film. Principal photography began in late 1991 in Greensboro, North Carolina, which stood in for New York City. JP's club was set in a furniture factory neighboring High Point. Transatlantic gave Hickox 6 weeks to shoot the film. Hickox had previously established a very fast shooting schedule that used long hours, which meant the Hellraiser III cast had to adjust his unorthodox style and the studio's demands. Riley said that he worked for 17 hours straight one day, and the large number of scenes shot daily meant they had little time to perfect them. Hickox's preference for in-camera editing sped up production, but limited the actor's view of how the completed film will look. They instead had to depend on storyboards. Unlike previous Hellraiser films, the stages used were all very close to each other and shared a single soundstage, which made shooting simultaneously with multiple crews difficult. Though Bradley said he enjoyed the production working with Hitchcock's, he experienced discomfort in some of his scenes. Early on, Bradley had to act from within the uncomfortable Pillar of Souls prop where Pinhead is trapped. This restricted Bradley's acting to just his face and voice. Bradley also said that the makeup from Hellraiser III was his least favorite. Jones had changed Pinhead's makeup to make it faster to apply and remove, but this had the side effect of making it more uncomfortable to wear. However, Bradley was able to find an optician that allowed him to wear a prescription version of Pinhead's black lenses, allowing him to stay in character for much longer periods. During the sex scene between Amelie and Bernhard, Lee protested at having to appear topless. This resulted by having Bernhard place his hands on her breasts, obscuring them. The guest and crew reportedly got along well, and during an on-set visit by Fangoria magazine, the only complaint reported was that Marshall found her outfit too light to shoot during a cold winter night. The scene where Alien and Pinhead confront each other was difficult to shoot, necessitating a stand-in for Pinhead. Bradley remarked that he felt jealously protective of the character when he saw a stand-in, as this was the first time anyone else had ever appeared in character as Pinhead on a Hellraiser set. The biggest issue was the Black Mass scene, which caused controversy in socially conservative North Carolina. Hitchcock had been refused permission to shoot in a real church, so he used a map painting as a background to the altar. When the crew complained of sacrilege, Hitchcock told them it was no different than the Callous Hammer horror films in which Christopher Lee as Dracula rampaged in churches. Beside that, Hitchcock reported only a healthy rivalry between Marshall and Farrell, which he welcomed. This encouraged them to up the ante in their shared scenes. And now on to the special effects. Keen's effects crew of Hellraiser III included coordinator Paul Jones, supervisor Steve Painter, Mark Coulier, and Bob's brother Dave, head sculptor Paul Catlin, and mechanical effects coordinator Ray Bivens. For Hellraiser III, Keen used a two-piece prosthetic where small plates and the makeup stood of the pins. It only took 3 hours to apply the makeup, around 2 hours less than it took to apply the 6-7-piece Pinhead makeup in the past two films. A motor with an off-center cam was also built into the right-hand side of JP's makeup, where it moved around the head and pushed a piston to the left-hand side. The actual Barbie and CD head wore prosthetic masks for their roles. The dummy replication for both characters were shots showing when they used their weapons. Barbie's transformation was done through reverse shots, where silver spray-painted barbed wire was wrapped around by different strings in each shot. Real barbed wire was used on dummies, while the fake barbed wire was used on the human actors. Producing Barbie's flamethrowers involved putting gas in a frame flamethrower in a fiberglass head. The gas would build up inside a fake torso before a fire blasted through the top head. And now onto the post-production. Koopa suggests that Hitchcock used the nonlinear editing system Ediflex, which was made by a company he owned. This was quickly abandoned after the software turned out to be too time-consuming. Miramax became interested in distributing the film in the U.S., but what happened next is contentious. According to Hitchcock, Bob Weinstein loved the rough cut he saw and offered Hitchcock's money for additional effects work and to redo the editing. This resulted in early use of computer-generated imagery, the first in horror film, to add several gory scenes. Barker disputes this account and says that Koopman showed him a work print. Unimpressed, Barker declined an executive producer credit, criticizing the film's ending and low-budget effects work. After Miramax became involved, Barker says Weinstein asked for his honest evaluation of the film. Barker rated his criticisms and, at Weinstein's urging, came in to fix the film. In Barker's account, he was responsible for Rel's bondage scene, additional scenes of extended gore in the nightclub massacre, and the CGI when Lee's character is skinned. Regardless of the extent of Barker's involvement in post-production, it was now enough for him to accept an executive producer credit, as well as the film given a Clive Barker Presents banner. Additionally, Barker promoted the film alongside Candyman. And now finally, let's take a look at the themes. Writing in the Hellraiser films are a legacy, although Paul can identify several themes in the film. First, the horrors of war. Kane identifies as the strongest and most pervasive. Hellraiser III homages war films like Apocalypse Now, Platoon, and Born on the 4th of July. Kane says both Joey and Elliot are depicted as seeking answers following traumatic experiences of war. Joey wants to understand her father's death in Vietnam, and Elliot searches for meaning after losing his faith in both God and mankind. After Elliot's transformation to Pinhead, he commands Hell's forces, and later is shown directing the newly created Cenobites. Hickok said this is a direct allusion to Elliot's war experiences. Kane identifies dreams as another common theme, often in terms of how they relate to desire. According to Kane, Joy's nightmares reflect her frustrated ambition to be recognized in her career and beat the glass ceiling. When her dreams of getting the story of her life come true, she is left no better off, as there is no evidence. Likewise, Pinhead appeals to JP's and Terry's dreams, promising to make their ambitions come true. For Terry, this is more literal, as she desires the ability to dream. Kane says that although the film never explicitly states this, it's clear that Elliot wishes to regain his humanity, or merely he seeks to control Pinhead, who in turn desires unrestrained freedom. In Kane's analysis, technology and specifically communication devices figure prominently. Unplugged radios and televisions transmit warnings from Elliot. Chrissy's warning comes in the form of videotape, and Joey works in the television industry. The transformed Cenobites are fused with technology, which Kane compares to Tetsuo, the Iron Man. The transformations also illustrate another theme, duality. Many of the characters have an alter ego, such as Elliot and Pinhead. Kane says although Joey does not have a physical alter ego, her dream self regresses to that of a young child similar to Lewis Carroll's Alice. Kane says many of the characters and the relationships in Hellraiser III match those of the first two films. Like Christy, Joey's lost her father, and she finds a new father figure in Elliot. Kane identifies Elliot as vaguely hinted at love interest for her, as he shares a psychic intimacy with her that no living man can. Joe and Terry initially have a relationship similar to Christy and Tiffany in Hellbound, then an antagonistic one similar to Christy and Julia in Hellraiser. According to Kane, both JP and some who said Pinhead mirror Frank's insatiable lust. Kane describes the Cenobites as reflections of the ones from the first two films. Interesting. So overall, yeah, I think this is definitely the best of the series, right along with the first one. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about it. So, yeah. So overall, I give Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, 5 element configurations out of 5. Well, anyway, to tomorrow as we tackle the next film in the series, Hellraiser Bloodline. So, until then, remember everyone, whatever you do, don't fall asleep.